paper. All right, so the definition of motivational interviewing is listed both on page 326 and 327 of the article. So motivational interviewing is a directive, client-centered counseling style for eliciting behavior change by helping clients to explore and resolve ambivalence. The key word with motivational interviewing is ambivalence, and at every different stage of change, there's a different type of ambivalence. Ambivalence is usually resolved by the action stage, and then in maintenance, it remains at bay or resolved. We can start to know that a client is slipping out of action or maintenance when ambivalence begins to arise, and they start considering whether or not they need to be sober anymore. That would be ambivalence, and I'd then want to interview the client and figure out what stage of change they're in if they had resolved all of the ambivalence. From the perspective of motivational interviewing, it's a technique that's no longer needed after ambivalence is resolved, and you might go to a different therapeutic modality after ambivalence is resolved. So that's just food for thought. And ambivalence, that's what we're looking for. All behavioral change is characterized by ambivalence. The ambivalence changes again with each stage of change, but it's present until action or maintenance is achieved. The spirit of motivational interviewing, I just wanted to highlight the 7 points that are made. So motivation to change is elicited from the client and not imposed from without. So that I can't overemphasize how important that is. Motivation to change is elicited from the client. We only change when we want to change as human beings. And this is what's unique about motivational interviewing. It's why it's more of a humanistic, I think, a humanistically oriented therapeutic approach. It's a recognition that the human being is responsible for their own change, and we're simply trying to elicit the commitment to change from the client. It is the client's task, not the counselor, to articulate and resolve his or her own ambivalence. So from that perspective, if a client remains in ambivalence for a long time, I don't take on myself that I've failed because I haven't resolved the ambivalence for the client. It's the client's job to resolve their own ambivalence. I may have to critically analyze my own work if I've been working with someone for a while and ambivalence is just exactly the same. Then I'm likely maybe asking the wrong questions or not facilitating the individual through the resolution of their own ambivalence. But it's always important to keep in mind that the person resolves their ambivalence. We simply help them to do that. With that being said, the next point in the article, direct persuasion is not an effective method for resolving ambivalence. And that's why it talks about later in the article, confrontation and aggressive approaches don't belong in a motivational interviewing protocol. We're not going after people. And that is what happens. It's a critique of 12 steps. It's one of my most significant critiques of 12 steps. There are 12-step meetings and certain flavors of 12-step approaches that are very attacking and very aggressive, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that as a clinician. I don't think that's an approach that works, and it's one of the things that can turn me off with 12-step meetings when that happens. I don't know if any of you experienced that. So this is about meeting the person, truly meeting the person where they are and respecting that. The counseling style is generally a quiet and eliciting one, so I won't say too much more about that. The counselor is directive in helping the client to examine and resolve ambivalence. So this is where it's different from Rogerian person-centered psychotherapy. We aren't simply listening and reflecting back to the person. Through the questions, it's strategic questions that are asked, and the questions are asked in order to direct the person to resolve their ambivalence. And so non-directive therapy, Rogerian or person-centered therapy, is different, and it's important to keep that in mind when studying motivational interviewing. Readiness to change is not a client trait, but a fluctuating product of interpersonal interaction. So that says that you're not born with the ability to change we're not born with an ability to change our behavior or not. It's not a trait. It's not something that some people have and other people don't have. It's a product of our interpersonal interaction. If I take an aggressive stance and tell someone they have to change when they're in contemplation, that's going to completely destroy the relationship, and the likelihood of someone returning to my office for therapy is almost non-existent. So if I meet someone at the contemplation stage of change with an attitude that's based in respect and curiosity and really seeking to open the person up rather than telling them what they need to do, the likelihood of them returning to my office is much higher. So again, the interpersonal exchange, the interpersonal interaction dictates the level to which people are willing to change, then that's something to really give some thought to. The last point on page 327, the therapeutic relationship is more like a partnership or companionship than expert-recipient roles. Again, that's one of the things I mentioned about narrative therapy during the intensive. One of the things I love about motivational interviewing, if you can hear my dog barking, I apologize. It assumes that the individuals who seek our assistance are experts also. I'm an expert in chemical dependency. I believe that, and I operate from that perspective. And I also believe that individuals who come and see me are the expert authors of their own lives. So it's an egalitarian relationship in which both people are respected as having expertise. It's not a power dynamic where I have all the knowledge and expertise and I'm going to apply techniques to change the client or the patient. It's the opposite of that. We're both coming as equals of some sort with different levels of expertise and not different levels, but different areas of expertise. So I love that about motivational interviewing. This is getting to be a bit long, the lecture, and I don't want it to go on too long, so I won't say too much more. I do want to highlight on page 330, it provides bullet points on the specific differences from more confrontational approaches to therapy, so please do highlight that, take a look at that. It's in the middle of page 330, and that was the main point. I guess previous to that, on page 328, there are bullet points about what motivational interviewing is in more detail and how you can use it effectively. So that's it. I think I'm going to leave it there. Please do review that master document. If you have questions about that, let me know. Please attend your second meeting this week. Start to look for any evidence of motivational interviewing techniques being used in the 12-step meetings. You can also reflect on how you've used it with yourself or how you might use it with other people. Really encourage a variety of applications of motivational interviewing techniques as you go through the next couple of weeks. And just play around with it in your own lives and see what it's like. Okay, that is it for now. Thanks, everyone.